All right. Good evening, everyone. My apologies off the top. I'm Pete Dalliday, filling in for Tyson tonight. Tyson Geik has the night off, and everyone, of course, will miss him for sure. But we got a special show for you here tonight. It's episode 7 right here tonight of Inside the Nest, and I've been lucky enough to be a guest on the show, and real fortunate to fill in tonight for Tyson. I appreciate him giving me the nod here tonight for sure, and we'll talk a lot of Thunderbirds lacrosse tonight, that is for sure. So welcome in, and we want to join and welcome to the show Luc Magnan. Luc, is coming off a great year on the back end for the Thunderbirds. And hey, Luc, how you doing? Happy Tuesday to you, pal.
Hey, Pete. Good to see you. No, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that it's coming up to almost a year since we probably saw each other last in person, of course, and just your thoughts on that in general. Just since the league got shut down because of COVID-19, it's scary to think it is coming up to a 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, you know what? It's also unpredictable, obviously, with the shutdown back in March, and we were picking up a lot of steam, right? First year being in Halifax and making that run. Obviously, there was, we had a pretty good locker room too, tight group, and it was just a fun team to be around. And you can just tell that we were just building into something pretty special, right? And obviously, with the recent news of the season being canceled for this coming year is obviously pretty disappointing. But I understand, you understand it at the same time, but yeah, it is what it is. And there could be a lot of worse things out there. So, obviously still grateful to be doing things like this and, catching up with you like we can now, but yeah, it is what it is. Right.
So overall, though, other than missing Halifax, missing playing, how are things going for you in general? Keeping busy, obviously, at work, and tell us, for the fans that don't know, what you do sort of full time when you're not playing professional lacrosse.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, missing it. So I guess for myself, I'm a school teacher. Lucky enough, I teach at the Hill Academy in Caledon, Ontario, and we just had our first, obviously there's a lot of restrictions still within the province of Ontario, but we were able to have our first non-contact practice today. And, just that ability to be in person again, teaching students and having that practice. It was nice to, have this stick in your hands, quote unquote, but to be able to do that with the kids and, the smiles through your masks, if you will, on your face. But that was nice. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm a school teacher and a lacrosse coach there. And so really it's my dream job. And, I'm pretty grateful to, and lucky and fortunate to be working at the Hill Academy. And then it works really well with being able to travel on weekends out to Halifax or to wherever our destination is if we were having a season 2. So that flexibility that they've always given me has been really nice, obviously, to still play and coach and teach. So I kind of get the best of both worlds with all that being said. Like, you have the perspective on the coaching side of things and being a teacher and then obviously still as a player too, right? So I've been lucky enough to do that and have some of that insight, and obviously still being a young teacher and coach, still learning a lot within that profession. But it's the best job, one of the most really rewarding for me, best job that I could dream of, really.
Well, what you're doing, as you know, but I mean, not only are you producing better athletes, you're producing young gentlemen and whatever the case may be, future lawyers and doctors and people in the community that are going to go on to many things. And so you're doing a great job there. So congratulations and keep up the great work there. And those smiles must have been fantastic today. I mean, with the sticks in hands for the first time in a long time, they must have been smiling like a butcher's dog today, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's just that interaction that I think we all miss, right? It's even us right now, I'm sure a lot of people have had their Zoom calls or their family FaceTimes, whatever it is, but there's something different about being in person and having, just having that interaction one-on-one within a group. And, whether that's going to a restaurant or, going to see a concert, like, the amount of times I've heard that from people, the things I would do to go to a live concert or live music and, have a couple, adult beverages, if you will. But it's things like that you take for granted a little bit, for sure. But once things do open up again, those are the things that we're all looking forward to, and that's what's going to make it so much more special when you get back. And then to your point about the kids and smiling, that's what you miss too, right? I come on a Zoom call, synchronous learning, and hey guys, how's it going? and it's crickets in the background, right? Because everyone has their their mics on mute. And if you go into a classroom, hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, it's good, and you pick up the conversation right away. So little things.
Awesome. It's little things, and you're right. I mean, had I known late last February that'd be my last trip on the East Coast, I would have got the double fish and chips for sure instead of just the single. You don't know at the time. It's like, I don't know.
I know.
But what do you miss the most about Halifax, other than, of course, the guys and being in the room and getting on the floor? But just, you mentioned it off the top, but that whole experience of enjoying, and you grew up in Manitoba and have spent a lot of time in Ontario, but the Maritimes in general, how that was for you last year and what you miss about the East Coast and Halifax.
Yeah, I've said it before, the family atmosphere of, I think, the smaller province of Nova Scotia, it reminded me a lot of home, being growing up in Manitoba. So having that just family atmosphere, just how polite and genuine people were and excited that, we were there, and, it made you feel like a true professional being there in that aspect. And, a few things I do miss, like I miss the chowder. I miss getting off the plane and half the team calling in, getting a bowl of, seafood chowder at, the Harborfront Marriott. Like I think I heard Pat say that the other day, and even
Patty liked his chowder.
I think we both liked our chowder, and we were always sitting beside each other on the flights home, so we always had good chats, talking about the game before, just getting his insight. And just because you guys see, you guys obviously have the bird's eye view, if you will, right? So hearing his perspective as I was sitting with him quite a bit coming back on flights, it was, stuff like that. Those conversations are just, like hanging out with the guys, and like all the restaurants there, top notch, right? Great food, obviously. And then I think the best thing for me was, loading up on like lobsters or something, from the airport, and all right, we're having lobster tonight. Few people coming over, little things like that. So grabbing a half dozen or dozen lobster, or whatever, was always pretty cool.
Yeah, one of my memories of coming home on the Sunday, and for the fans that are watching that aren't sure, it's a quick turnaround. The game, you guys play for the most part there at the Nest on a Saturday night, and you're on a plane the next morning at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and heading back to, most guys are going back to wherever, Ontario. But watching, and I don't know if he's going to join us tonight or not, because I wanted to ask him about this, but Billy D Smith coming on that plane, and he's got his knapsack, and then he's smiling again like you wouldn't believe, and he's got that box of lobsters with him as he's climbing onto the plane. It was always a great sight on a Sunday morning, for sure. So fun times. Hopefully it won't be long.
He was definitely the leader of loading up on a dozen lobster. I think he was always going over to Coach Akersey's house. He was buying them, and I think Akersey and his wife were cooking them up, and they were having those gatherings together. But seeing Big Billy D walking through the aisle with his like 5 bags, and 2 of them were the cases of lobster.
I think he traveled light on the way out, knowing on the way home he was going to have all those lobsters to bring.
That's a savvy vet move.
Yeah, he's a veteran move. But let's talk about him just for a sec. Let's, because you're a defensive player, and Billy D was obviously one of the best defensive players of his era for sure. How much did you learn playing under him this year? With him there on the bench and in practice, midweek. How valuable was that for you and some of the other defensive guys?
Yeah, Billy D, he's the man. He's such a good coach, and something I definitely admire about him is how relatable he was to players, right? To us, obviously being a former player himself. Like when was it Rochester? I think his last year when he signed over in Rochester before we moved to Halifax. Like I was lucky enough to play with him for a year and a half or there. Yep. So just learning from him of how hard he played, right, in games, right. Obviously, he's intense when he turns. I think everybody has that. You got to have that switch, right? You got to be able to turn that switch on as a player and really, get into the zone, I guess, if people would say. And Billy was obviously pretty good at doing that. But yeah, playing for him this year, obviously him being our defensive coordinator, defensive coach, like he was awesome. Like even the film sessions we did, like his attention to detail and breaking things down for, the young guys. I would probably, I still consider myself a young guy in the league, and, just being able to understand things, and then also, giving us a voice too, like, does this work? Right. And,
right.
So he gave the veteran players like Graham Hossack, Scott Campbell, and Jake Withers, a lot of say in, what we wanted to do, Brad Gillies, and it was, definitely a cohesive unit back there. It was a lot of fun to play with those guys. They're so good. Even our young guys with Trevor Smith and, Nungo Thompson. It was, Army. It was a fun group, a lot of fun playing with those guys. And then obviously when you have the King of the Hill having a season like he did, it was, the mistakes that you do make, Warren would make us look good, and, usually would send it down with a nice reverse transition or whatever it was. He was solid for us on the back end.
Yeah, that he was. There's no question about that. He was just, he started the year before, I guess, ending that season on a bit of a roll and just picked up where he left off. And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and you can attest to this, like he along with a couple other guys became almost like rock stars in Halifax in a hurry, like in a short amount of time. People knew who Warren Hill was.
Oh yeah, well, it's funny, right? Like it's like goalies. Goalies are one of a kind, but Warren is honestly is the man, and he was so good for us this past year. And it just gives you that confidence as a player too, right? When you just know your goalies that rock back there for you, and it just gives the defense confidence. It gives your offense confidence when they're on the floor. So if they make mistakes, right, you're just like the three parts of the game. Everyone believes in that and believes in each other. That's when you have those like championship teams, right? And that's that feeling that it was like it had that same feeling when we made our run. I think it was 2018 when we lost the Saskatchewan Rush in the finals. You just had that same feel, right? You just knew that there was something special, and we had all three units that were really solid. But yeah, when you have Warren playing the way he was, and giving the confidence to everyone else, that's really where it goes, right? It's, building from the back up and, kind of flourish from there.
And talk about too, I mean, you have that team, and you had all those three parts, as you say, moving, and now you've added, the Thunderbirds have added to that with some really key pieces, not only offensively with a guy like Steph LeBlanc, who's living now in the Halifax area, which is real great, but now you've added some more D and a transition guy. Talk a little bit about, bringing in Tyson and David Brock and some of these guys, just how much, deeper you are now on that sort of back end and in transition.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and that's the thing too. Was disappointing about not having the season this year was we added so much depth, and just like Steph LeBlanc, I played with him my first year in Toronto, like stand-up guy, classic, just a true pros pro,
Yep.
only adding, and I think we already had the best left side in the game, and then you add him in there, it's, just more depth, right? And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I had the privilege to play too with Tyson Bell, Brampton Senior A. Heck of a player, like legit in transition, great D
Oh,
guy, and then
yeah.
obviously, and then you add Brock, just savvy vet, calm, cool, and collected. Some toughness, right, and some size too on that back
Mm-hmm.
end, and yeah, like great. And that just makes your a more competitive environment for all of us, right? Because everybody wants to play, and which is good, right? That inner competition that you have, it's
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, and we had that as well last year. Like our practices were intense, right? And
Yeah.
we call a Kersey Herb Brooks every once in a while,
Again.
just for
Again.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right. And but that's what it takes, I think, right?
Yep.
Like you got to be in great shape, and having that competitive edge too. And when you're led by Cody Jameson and Graham Hossick and Scott Campbell, right, our leaders, right, and those guys are your hardest working
Yeah.
players in practice.
Yeah.
It's that's when it's like, well, you can't hide, right? So I think that's what also makes us really competitive too. Is there's, like, I was laughing. I was talking to Eric Fennell the other day about, like, him and I got into a little, shoving match, if you will, in
Yep.
practice, but it's
Yep.
just
Yep.
compete, right? That's what it came down to. It was, we were both just playing hard, and I
Yep.
think that's a good thing too, right? And that's what I miss a
Yeah.
lot within our team, right? Is just how competitive we were, and then adding those three guys, like, holy smokes, legit.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with a little tussle of practice. If you don't have that, the odd time, you're probably not doing it right. So, I'm
Yeah,
sure you made up
exactly.
afterwards, but it happens
Yeah,
on teams
five
that are
five
good.
minutes later. Yeah,
Yep. So
exactly.
it's all good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so there's lots to talk about. You got a new blog that we want to talk about as well. But just one final thought, looking back, is we don't want to look too far back. You want to look ahead, and I know you're looking forward to the next season. But what was the one highlight for you last season and that inaugural season? Was it the home opener? Was it that crazy Rush game? Was it the win over the Rock? I mean, what was the highlight for you in season one out in Halifax?
Yeah, hard to pinpoint one. There are just
Yeah.
obviously so many great things, but yeah, I think our home opener, just being there, how surreal that was. That was a big, just getting that first win. What a feeling that was, and yeah, that. I mean, even though we lost, I tell a lot of people that was one of the, what a roller coaster of of emotions that
Oh,
game was, and just I think it was, I think it demonstrated to our team, like, it showed, like, hey, we have some resilience here, and we can make a comeback too. And the Rush have
yep.
been, I think, the pinnacle of the league for a while, right? They're the team to beat, and yeah, unfortunate we lost, but what a game that was. I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
it
Shanksy
was
scoring that
crazy.
goal, that game tying goal. It was,
Yeah.
watching that clip the other day that it was a year ago, not too long ago, right? The clip that just
Yeah.
resurfaced. It's, holy
Yeah.
smokes, yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's such a cool shot, and then you got that super fan in the corner that was just a great, like, it just everything came together. It was just like
Yeah.
it was an unbelievable game. Like, it was just, as you say, you as a player, I was just a broadcaster, so, but you as a player, the emotions in that game, it must have been all over the map. You
Yeah,
must have slept well
that's
that
the
night.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were exhausted, but
If you did.
that's the thing. I think
Yeah.
it's you got to control those emotions in your game, right? Too. And I remember right after
Yeah.
Shanksy scored, like, I was so pumped, but I remember just talking to Wiz right away, and like, hey, like, next this massive face off, right? And, like,
Yeah.
Wiz is true
Yeah.
professional, like, right out there already, and won the face off. Obviously, is best in the game, but yeah, it's tough, right? But that's part of the game, is what's next and
Yep.
trying to stay even kill.
Wild stuff. Let's talk about your blog, Mondays with Mag. I think you're into week number 2. The first week, You talked about offensive guys. Week 2 this past week, you talked about defensive guys. How did the blog come about, and how's it going so far? I know I've been enjoying them. After a couple of weeks. So just tell us a little bit about Mondays with Mag.
Yeah. I mean, really, it was just, hey, we're not having a season anymore. And I think the writing was on the wall a little bit for a while there. It was, obviously unpredictable, and the league was trying to put some things together, and unfortunately things fell through. But it was, I'm used to traveling on the weekends with a lot of free time. And so I approached like Charlie Ragusa, or like media director, if you will, on the team, and talked to him about the idea. And it just really came up from, reading Players Tribune. So reading about different athletes and their stories, and then just the idea of, it'd be kind of cool to, give some insight to, what's it like, right? What's it like playing in the NLL, and, and what's it like playing against some of these guys too, right? Like, it was pretty easy to write about some, everyone knows that Lyle Thompson and Cody Jameson, Curtis Dixon, Mark Matthews, right? They're the best players in the league. Everyone knows that, but
right.
Why are they so good? And why is it,
yeah.
What's that feeling like when you're, when you're one-on-one with some of these guys, or, how do you stop them? How do you manage them? And then that was the offensive one. And then the one that was posted on, this past Monday, the defensive players, like, what makes them so good? And, what am I looking for in film when I'm watching them? So it was cool to kind of write about that. And it's just been, I got a lot of free time on my hands on the on the weekends nowadays. So that was, that was part of it too.
You're doing a good job. As I was saying you before we came to air, I mean, I learned a lot, things I thought maybe I knew about guys, but you have such a different perspective, and you're right there on the floor, either playing with them or against them. And it's a great read. And, let's talk about some of the guys you mentioned. Let's talk about Cody Jameson, your teammate there, Captain Halifax, as we take a look at the blog there. And some of the offensive guys, you mentioned them, but let's talk about the Halifax guys in particular. Cody Jameson just has a knack for, as you say, natural leadership right from the get-go of practice. But what makes him a special offensive player that you would find if you had to play against him, difficult?
Yeah, I mean, that he's gonna get his, right. Like, Jammer's gonna score. He's gonna find guys. Like, he has a unbelievable vision in the game, and being able to find open players, or even making other players open. Like, that's why he's such an amazing player. Is like, the great ones just make everybody else around them so much better. But it's just that it's hard to describe with Jammer. That's why I talk. It's like the Jammer effect. He's he's a generational talent, and his game is like, it's, his shot is unique. And he has the ability to just take a game over when you need him. And I think, like, the players, people that have played with him probably know what I'm trying to say, or at least what I tried to say about him. But you just know with him, it was just so, it's just so sure. Like, you just know that he's gonna make something happen. And, obviously, as some, he's an unbelievable leader, and, so well respected, and, to play with him as a teammate, like, he's going to be a future Hall of Famer in the game. So for a guy like me, right, just really your average defenseman in the league, like, it's pretty, I consider myself pretty lucky to play with him.
And obviously, and then practicing, not that you practice a whole lot, but to be able to practice against the best, certainly helps you become a better defender too. So there's that effect. So what about the defensive guys? That was the most recent blog yesterday. You mentioned some guys and threw some great credit out there to guys around the league, like Robert Hope out there in Colorado, and who you see a lot in the summertime as well. And but let's talk about the guy you started off with, and that's Jake Withers, who you mentioned earlier. Everyone thinks of Jake Withers. You think a face-off guy, one of the best in the business, but you're mentioning how, he's more than just a face-off guy.
Yeah, well, and I think that was something I thought that was important to highlight is, he's the term "fogo," face off, get off. Like, he's so much more than that. And when he first came into the league in his rookie year, I just like blown away with how good he was. And, we built some really good chemistry off the bat, and, had, our coaching staff at the time like trusted us to be out there in some big situations and playing against the 2-man game on that left side. And and Jake's just gotten better too. So as much as he's the best face-off guy in the league, it's he can cover anybody one-on-one. And yeah, there you go. He has a great scoring touch too. So he's one of the most complete. He's such a complete player. Like, you could put him down on some offensive ships if you really wanted to. But and now I'm really pumping his tires. He's gonna be fired up.
But yeah, I should have mentioned too.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I should have mentioned too, when we're talking about the offensive guys, we should have mentioned Ryan Banesh. We just saw a clip of him there. There he is there. But again, You mentioned him, like, he just kind of quietly sometimes goes about his business. At the end of the night, you look and you go, Ryan Banesh had 4 goals and 3 assists. He just kind of, he's 8th or something now in league history. Like, he's just gone about a great career, and his name doesn't get mentioned sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually messaging him the other day, and I said, I think I need to write a blog about you, man, because 8th all time in NLL scoring. You look at the game sheet at the end of the game, and it's how did Benny do? How did he do in the game? And he's 1 in 5, or 2 and 4. So he's putting up numbers like that, and that's on a consistent basis too, right? Like, he's one of the purest shooters in the game too, and. Yeah, Ben, what a heck of a player, and makes our locker room so much better too. He's a glue guy. Him and Jake are really glue guys.
Yeah, some great shots right there, and that was a big night there. That's the Saskatchewan game we were talking about, and you guys had a great chance to wear sort of the military uniforms that night as well. That must have been a special night for you.
Yeah, that was really cool. Those are. Out of some of the theme jerseys I've worn in the past, those are probably my favorite for sure. Yeah, that was a fun night. Obviously a great game, but yeah, those jerseys were sharp.
All right, back to the D guys. Sorry, I was cutting you off there, but I think you were going to quickly mention something about Robert Hope, who's a guy. I have the pleasure to see him in Peterborough in the summertime a lot. He's the captain of the Lakers, and you mentioned something about that, about of all these big names in Peterborough, the who's who, and out of the blue they made Robert Hope the captain. But you have a good feeling as to why they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely something to be said about he's still a young guy himself, and there's a lot of veterans and some big names in Peterborough, and they name him captain. So there's something to be said about that, right? Obviously, he's. It has obviously some pretty good leadership qualities and good character about him. But yeah, even his game, right? It's pretty quiet. And you look at, he's got 10 loose balls, couple caused turnovers. And that's what makes really good defensemen too, I think, is, if you're not going, if you're being noticed, sometimes it's usually for, goals, right?
Or going to the penalty box.
For the wrong reasons. Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a balance with it, but he's really, good, fundamentally sound. And so I think if you're a young player, you watch guys like, Jake, you watch guys like Robert Hope, and then obviously those other guys on that list too are, I would say most other people would, think the same thing, but, for the most part, but it's, guys like that, there's something to be said there for sure.
And let's talk about, this was my favorite part of your blog yesterday, because I didn't know these nicknames existed for Graham Hossick. Grambo. What are a couple other ones that you've labeled? I think you made one up on the spot, but tell us some of the nicknames for Big Hoss.
Big Hoss. Well, yeah, that's one. Big Hoss. Yeah, some of his Russian students. Graham's a math teacher, and it was a Big Hoss. Like, that's how they
that's what they say.
Call him. Yeah, he's just this giant walking in. Well, and he's if he's teaching grade 9 students, right? And you see Graham, he's just this giant walking into your classroom, and this is our math teacher. It's like kindergarten cop almost. But yeah, Grambo, I think Eric Fennell gave him that one. Cyborg was maybe Jake Elliott, and yeah, the great Grambino just came up on the spot.
That was the best. So that was from you, right? The great Grambino.
I just started laughing. Yeah, I don't even know how it came about. I was just typing away and it came up. But yeah, obviously Graham's a pretty special player, right? Like, arguably the best defenseman in the game right now, and 3-time defending or defensive player of the year, right? Yeah. That kind of speaks for itself. But it's his work ethic too, right? It's he plays the game in the right way. He's in the gym every day. He treats his body right. He's with what he's fueling himself with too in terms of nutrition, and then obviously his compete level, right? Like the guy plays 30 plus minutes a game. Like he's like I said earlier, right? If you're a D guy that doesn't get noticed, usually that's a good thing. But he's that player that's above the ledger all the time. He's making those he's making those plus plays all over the place, and he'll finish a minute shift. We score. He's out for the ball team. Our ball team is basically him and Jake Withers. that are doing all the work, and so it's just it speaks for itself, right? Those guys and how good they are. It's it's really no secret to it. It's just they put in the work.
Yeah, and you know what? As good as he is on that back end, I mean, he scored some nice goals this year as well. I mean, he's got some pretty good mitts on him for a big fella,
Yeah, and and that's what's scary too, is he just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah,
and he's developing the scoring touch now, and I think that's how I capped it off. I said, you know what, if he puts up serious numbers one year with in terms of points, like he's going to be in the question for MVP, no doubt, no doubt about it for what he does, right? So
yeah, for sure. Well, especially if Pat Gregoire has a vote, he would get Pat loves him. Pat's a defensive guy, our color commentator, and so he just he gives you guys a lot of props for sure, the D guys and Graham in particular. Listen, before we go, the blog is great. Obviously, the best way to get there is to go to the website here at HalifaxThunderbirds.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the website, it's there, and usually Monday mornings it gets posted. So
you mentioned too, and we should touch on this before we let you go, but how crucial it is for guys like you, some other guys that are really good at the social media game, and because you compared it to the big four, whether it be the NFL, the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and kind of the where they're at with things money wise, how important it is for you and the other players to get involved on the social level. So just talk about that just a little bit briefly, if you don't mind, Luke.
Yeah, and obviously it's pretty new for me too, and I wouldn't really say I'm a big social media person, or I'm active on social media, but within posting things myself. But yeah, I think there's something to be said, I think, in terms of thinking differently, right? So obviously we're not a big four league, owners aren't bringing in obviously as much revenue as those other leagues, and we don't have these big TV deals either. So I think we got to be creative, right? The league within itself has to find ways to, create content, promoting our players, promoting our teams, right? Supporting our teams, and getting that out there, how important that is. So yeah, we got to think differently for sure. And I think that's something I am trying to figure out on, in one of my blogs too, and will be in something that'll be posted in the future. But yeah, just how important it is to think outside the box, really.
All right. Now, if you had to pick one of these guys to follow on their Twitch channel, would you follow Jake Withers on his Twitch channel or Colton Armstrong on his Twitch channel? Who would you rather watch play video games?
I think I've pumped Withers' tires too much today, so
okay.
I'd probably follow Army. But with that being said, I've watched Jake a few times. Plays with Clark Peterson, who's my roommate.
Right.
Roommate teammate in Halifax. They play together, and I watch them every once in a while. But yeah, go give those boys a follow. They're pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. I don't live too far from Jake Withers, and I think that was why I was having internet issues earlier tonight. Ever since he moved into my area, my bandwidth has gone way down.
Yeah,
So
Jake is.
I don't know what he's got running
He's definitely
down there,
stealing Wi-Fi. He's stealing Wi-Fi for sure.
Listen, Luke, we'll let you go. You probably got some practice plans to do up or some quizzes to mark, and keep up the great work at the Hill Academy. Can't wait to see you out east next season. I know you're itching to get at it, and it won't be long. Hopefully, the summer will go by quick in a way, and you'll be back at her. So we appreciate your time here tonight. It's been great chatting with you.
Absolutely. Lights at the end of the tunnel, and yeah, great catching up and chatting with you tonight, Pete. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. I don't think anyone that was tuning in, we were hoping to get Billy D on the show, but I think maybe he had some bandwidth issues as well. So I'm sure Tyson will have him on again another time. We look forward to him because he's always a great guest on Inside the Nest. So I want to thank John. Thanks for grabbing those clips, pal. Appreciate you putting the show together, and Charlie and everyone involved behind the scenes with Inside the Nest. Tyson will be back on the next edition, episode 8, coming up in a little bit. So again, thanks for watching Inside the Nest. Have yourself a great night, Thunderbirds fans.